All right, cool. All right, we're gonna go over. We're starting at chapter 6 in Genesis. It's about the flood. Last week we got all the way up to it, and we cut a little bit. Or no, we made it the full hour. So if you have your pen and paper, go ahead and get them ready. The flood's obviously on Noah. Here's a meditation card if you want it. Do you need some paper for notes?
I don't have none.
If you want to follow along, or you can just sit in. You can have your own Bible, but what are you doing? It's up to you. Okay. We're going out of NIV version, so just kind of wherever you want to start with, or whatever, in chapter 6. All right, the flood. When men began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years. Oh, wow. That's really cool. That's really cool he said that. I'm going to stop right there. Because I was jogging today, back from the gym, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to live 120 years old. I've never read that before in my life. And that's the number he put in my mind. And it's right there in front of me. And I've never heard that before in my life. So that's pretty cool. 120. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. When the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, men of renown. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil at the time. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said, I will wipe mankind, whom I have created, from the face of the earth, men and animals, and creatures that move along the ground, and birds of the air. For I am grieved that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. Do you want to Google Nephilim for me? I know that it is, like, I did see the movie Noah, and they appeared as little rock creatures in the movie. Like, they were angels, and they had succumbed to God, basically. He was like, they were angels of light, and then they betrayed him or something. I don't know exactly what happened. Can you Google Nephilim and exactly give me the correct definition of it? Because I know that they were basically, they just rock. They were beings of light, and then in the movie they became creatures of rock. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. So I mean, it's different. I'm trying to figure out if Nephilim is the same as, or what is the difference between sons of God and the Nephilim. Maybe you want to Google that. What's the difference between sons of God and Nephilim? Did you find it?
The Nephilim
What's the definition?
were the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men before the deluge.
So the Nephilim were they were heroes of old, men of renown. So the Nephilim were the daughters, like the angels went and had sex with daughters of men, and the Nephilim were those people, but they were still the sons of God. I wonder what exactly that means, though, because Can you Google what the sons of God were in Genesis, the complete? See, maybe there's a little more historical.
I think it's the fallen angels. So they were the
Yeah.
offspring of the fallen angels.
Did you Google it?
No, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah. So
It says right here,
they were the heroes of old, men of renown. So whatever. There's crazy people. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become. Well, obviously, he did that for a reason, though. So he wouldn't have let fallen angels mate with daughters of men. He wouldn't have let that happen unless he had a purpose for it, because God always has a purpose for everything. So maybe it was to calculate. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil at the time. So he saw him, he looked down, and he said, all these, they're just evil right now. And he was grieved with pain. His heart was full of pain. And chapter 9 this is the account of Noah. So this is where we're getting to Noah. Noah was a righteous man. And Noah is son of Lamech. Right, I had to figure this one out. It goes Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. That's the generation that we learned last week. And Lamech. Last week we learned that Noah, before we even learned about the Nephilim being here and how evil it had become because of this, Lamech had said about Noah in chapter 5, he said, what did he say? He named Noah and said, he will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground that the Lord has cursed. So Lamech had Noah, and he said because of Noah, he said Noah, and he said he's going to comfort us because of what had happened because of Eve talking to Adam, bringing that down. That's why he cursed the land. I don't think it was because of Cain. It was because of, that's when he cursed it. Maybe it was Cain cursed Eve. I don't know, caused by the ground the Lord has cursed. I'm pretty sure it's Eve, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, yeah, that's what Lamech said about Noah. He's like, he's going to do this. And then this is the account. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. How do you say it? Japheth. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. I wish I had one of these on hand just constantly. We should make a Google an app where it just is people's names in the Bible. That's not a bad idea. 11 is, now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof for it, and finish the ark to within 18 inches of the top. Put a door in the side of the ark, and make the lower, middle, and upper decks. I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has breath of life in it. He said he's going to bring a flood to kill everything. Agrees. Everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons, and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground. And of every kind of creature, and of every kind of animal and every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. So this is interesting. It's not a big boat. 75. How big do you think his apartment is? Square feet?
I don't know, 600 or 700 square feet. I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting because that's not very big. 75 feet wide.
That's not feet though, I don't think. That's cubits or something. Where are you reading
It
that?
says feet right here. And 45 feet high.
Which verse are you in? The ark is to be.
But I mean, he said you're going to take 2 of everything. That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's not a lot of space. But it could, though, also, like, you could think of the concept that back then, out of curiosity, they did say that people were a lot smaller back then. So it could be like they could have been like 4 feet tall, maybe 5 feet would have been their 6.
Well, 300 cubits is 150 yards.
Yeah, this says feet. It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. I always trust the word. There's always something. There's always something behind it. There's like I've proven God in my own life that I know that He's there, so I don't really got it. But it is interesting just to question it because that's not a lot of feet, but it's I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to think about. It's an interesting argument, I think, or debate to wonder about the size of the boat. That doesn't really matter because let's get back to this. But it probably does have significance more than I think. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. So he did all this. He brought the food, the animals, all of them. The Lord then said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you righteous in this generation. Take with you 7 of every kind of clean animal, a male and its mate, and 2 of every kind of unclean animal, a male and its mate, and also 7 of every kind of bird, male and female, to keep their various kinds alive throughout the earth. 7 days from now, I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made. 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made." And Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. He was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. There's something here, though. Can you calculate the size of? I'm still curious about the boat.
Well, what I'm calculating, because I'm reading in the NIV also, and mine doesn't say feet. It says.
Can you Google the size of the ark? Because there's always something. There's always something going on that is like you got to understand about the Bible. So I've always found that my doubt is usually a stepping stone to a greater faith. So.
Well, mine says the ark is to be 300 cubits long. And I found a converter here. 300 cubits is 150 yards. That's a football field and a half.
Oh, really?
Long. And then it says it's to be 50 cubits wide. So a football field and a half long and 25 yards wide.
No wonder. What do you think about the size of?
Which is 75.
What do you think about the size? Can you Google? Because I don't have internet. Can you Google the size of humans back then? Ask them. You just Google. What's the size of? How much have we grown in height, human, in the past 2,000 years? What 2,000? What is it? 6,000 years? Something like that. Let's get back to this. Chapter 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you." I just read that. And Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. 6. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. So there's another thing. He says he's 600 here, but then right here he's saying his days will be 120 years. So the Lord, my spirit will not contend with man forever. So not forever, for he is mortal. and his days will be 120 years. So right there it says will be 120 years. So here's something to go with this book. That it's telling you right here, yeah, he said we're 120 years, but this, and then right here it says Noah was 600 years old. I don't know this. I don't know the meaning of this. That's what I mean. There's always something in here that's very interesting to look at. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds, and of all creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark, as God had commanded Noah. And after the 7 days, the floodwaters came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. And rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living thing, as God had commanded Noah. The Lord shut him in. Then the Lord shut him in. 17. For 14 days the flood kept coming on the earth. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth. And as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. So all of them, even Everest, was covered in water, if it was still together in that time. Because we talk about Pangea. You heard the Pangea thing? What if it was around then? I don't know. You know Pangea, when the entire earth was one big, that's what they say. I mean, in our history books, I know a lot of it's a bunch of it is just whatever, but that's what they say. I wonder if it was around that time, or if it had already split according to this, but I don't know. Anyways, where am I at? The mountains were all underwater, under the earth. Every living thing that moved on the earth perished. Wait, the mountains were under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 20 feet. The waters rose and covers the mountains to a depth of more than 20 feet. So yeah, the number system is strange here. Every living thing that moved on the earth perished. Birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. So everything perished for this. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. He was also talking back, I don't know if you missed last week, we were talking about how I was thinking about this because some people nowadays in their religions, like Wicca, they'll worship trees as like they're alive beings. And God said only things with the breath of life in them. So it's like anything with the breath of life is alive. And people will look at trees like they're alive and stuff. That's what a bunch of these people are ignorant, because it only says if it has, he said we give them for food. That is for food. I don't know, it just came up with my thought. If you see anything or hear something you want to talk about, just pop up, but it's whatever. Where am I at? And life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. Men and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds of the air were wiped from the earth. All of it. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. Super cool. I'm still stoked on this 120 thing. I was jogging down the road today, and I was like, I didn't brush my teeth in the shower today. Sitting there going, my teeth gotta last 120 years. So, That's really cool. We're at 8. But God remembered Noah. The waters flooded. No, we're on 24. Sorry. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. So after the 40 days that it rained, there was 150 days of just ocean. So it rained for 40, and 150 days of just them just floating around, flooded the earth. There was just a flood for 150 days. I probably won't go nowhere with the numbers. We could calculate them if we try the number system, but I'm not going to get into that right now because it's way too.
5 months.
Yeah, it's way too far for. Well, this is just simple. Maybe if I was like trying to find hidden treasure on the earth, I would do that. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. Floodgates of the heavens. You want to Google that? I'm just curious about what the floodgates of the heavens is in chapter 8, Genesis. And the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of the 150 days, the water had gone down. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven. And it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. So he sent a raven out. That's interesting why he chose a raven. Did you figure out the floodgates yet?
It just says it's a expression.
Floodgates of the heavens.
Describing the beginning of the deluge of Noah's day.
Okay. Well, there's always something here. Let me see. You want to Google raven and just see the significance to Noah and the raven? Just see if there's anything there. I'm just curious about it. And then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface to the ground. That's cool, because that's what I was thinking. I was about to say, I thought he sent out a dove in the movie, or just in the cartoons and stuff I'd seen as a child. So he sent out a raven just to like scope things out. And then he sent out a dove to look for the surface of the ground. And he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground, to see if he could find a beach so he could go chill on the beach and hang out. But the dove could find no place to set its feet because there was water over all of the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. That's cool. Did you find anything about the raven?
There's a long thing here.
What does it
I
say?
haven't read it all yet.
What does it say? Read or just give me something.
Following the Genesis flood, as the ark was resting on Mount Ararat, Noah released the raven and dove from the ark at different times to go, and sending these birds was to determine if the flood waters had abated enough for Noah and his family to exit the ark.
That's cool. That is cool. That's interesting. Right on. Yeah, I don't know. Can you look up the significance of olive leaf? Like, if there was just a reason, maybe that was like the first, because it's a first. Like, what is it? It's from an olive tree, I guess. I'm just looking, like, wondering. The raven didn't really do much, but that's interesting because.
What I was
Is it? That doesn't matter.
What I was taught in church was the dove got the olive leaf because that was the first as the waters receded.
Yeah, it was the first one that came out and grabbed. Yeah. What was the first tree it found? But that's what I'm saying. Like, can you Google like, maybe, I'm just curious if why it was an olive, or just maybe there's something cool in that. Just Google that and see, maybe if you find something that can pop up and tell me. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth after it found that. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again, but this time it did not return to him. So he brought it back a leaf first, an olive leaf, and then he waited 7 more days, and then the dove just never came back. 13 is, by the first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year, 601, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. So is he just like sitting there? By the first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year, 601, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark. And so what is the covering? The covering was just like a canopy? And then he saw that the surface of the ground was dry. Maybe he just popped his head out. I don't know. By this 27th day of the second month, the earth was completely dry. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number upon it." 18. So Noah came out together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives. All the animals and the creatures that move along the ground and all the birds, everything that moves on the earth, came out of the ark, one kind after another. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of man, even though every inclination of his heart is evil from childhood, and never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done." 22. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. That's pretty cool, man. This is very interesting because that's just something that, like, that's weird because I was praying. It's kind of cool. Though today I was sitting and I was just doing my regular thing. I was about to make a sandwich actually. And God's been messing with me with giving him sacrifices and stuff, or just offerings. And it popped out to me because right after he got to the ground, he's like, first thing he's like, "I want to build an altar for the Lord." That's what I want to do. If I get a house, I'm just like, if I get some good land someday, I'm gonna build an awesome altar. And anyways, he said, this is what is super insanely cool because just in the spiritual, God already showed me. He said, today I was in the kitchen making my sandwich. He said, "I want that fish," right before I was cooking it. And I was like, okay. So I cooked the fish and he said, "Set it outside." And I was like, all right, cool. And I set it outside. But when I was cooking, I've done it a few times. But today it was like that's what I promised, man. And this is what's weird is today when I was cooking that fish, he's like, "It smells good." Like he was like, "It smells good." Like he was like that's what he said to me. And this said, "The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, 'Never again will I curse the ground.'" But that is super interesting because that's happened to me 2 occasions now, and I've never read this before. So that's really cool. This is interesting though. I'm like, as I have done, as long as the earth endures, all these things will never cease. So he will never take away seed time and harvest, or cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. They'll never cease. But that is interesting too, though, because it says every inclination of his heart is evil from childhood. So everything we do is not only perceived, it is evil. That's what he says of us even from childhood. From childhood, just when you grow up, everything you want to do is evil, and that's true. That's what it says right there. That's why, like, you really have to keep the spirit of God around you. I mean, you really got, like, I went and bought my WWJD bracelet the other day, and I promise, man, it's the best thing ever. You just walk around and you just keep that on your heart, talking to people. Changes you, man. It's really cool. But that's what I'm saying is because we're so evil, like Jesus is here and he takes all that for us. He's like, he's our mighty Savior, whatever. Okay, God's covenant with Noah. This is the covenant. I wonder if this is okay. Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall upon all the beasts of the earth and all the birds of the air, upon every creature that moves along the ground, and upon all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hands. The fear and dread of you will fall on everything. Everything that lives and moves will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything." So before, he's just like, I give you the green of the trees and stuff. And now he's like, I give you everything to eat. So it's like changed. So things have changed since the flood. At least right here it does. 4, chapter 9, verse 4. "But you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it. And for your lifeblood I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from each man too. I will demand an accounting for the life of his fellow man." This is a clear thing right here. This is spoken. "Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made man." So he's like right here, he's like saying, he's like, if its lifeblood is in it, like if you can see its blood, you cannot eat it. And he's gonna like talk like I'm gonna demand an accounting for it from every animal. So and from each man too. But he's just talking to us, like animals are free to go, but we can't go up to an animal and we can't eat that meat if its lifeblood is still in it. And he's saying like right there, I will demand an accounting from every animal and from each man too. So I wonder if like on judgment, he's like, you ate that animal when he told us not to.
I think what he means is if you kill it, you got to drain the blood out of it before you eat it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you gotta cook it too. You can't just like be like me, like eat it like a crazy person. Because he's like, it must mean disrespect.